Hey guys, so this is JRP77 from JGN Games, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to make a terrain in Unity. Now, if you remember from last week, we did a tutorial on making terrains in Blender. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because it's a bit easier to make terrains in Unity, but it depends on which style you're going for. Procedural styled are easier to make, you get a better result, it's more realistic, whereas sculpting, you have more control over it. So that's just an intro, I guess you could call it. But what is making terrains in Blender, how is that different than making terrains in Unity? So basically, Blender, if you're gonna make a terrain, you make it procedural and then you sculpt details. The problem that I see with Unity, but I'm gonna do a tutorial on it because it's still a great thing to know in Unity, is, well, it's not procedural. Procedural helps a lot. Yes, it may seem almost predictable, but you can make it more random inside of Blender. So we are going to be doing Unity, which is basically all sculpting. And so yeah, let's get started. So before we get started, we're going to be using the newest version of Unity, Unity 5.3. You'll see that I have an empty project right here. I've got my notes open up on one screen and I have my Unity window on another screen. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and create a terrain. So there's a few ways you can make a terrain, but the easiest way is to go to Game Object, 3D Object, Terrain. And that will create you a terrain object. Now you will see it is giant, even though it doesn't look big in the scale, it's still fairly giant. So I'm going to show you guys a tip for positioning the camera exactly where you want it. So first of all, I'm just going to navigate to about right there. Now if I select the main camera and I go to Game Object, Align with View, you will see that the camera automatically moves into the position of, well, wherever my viewport is. So that's a very nice tool for working with viewports. It even does rotation. It's so nice. I highly recommend using it. So I'm just going to do that so I get out of the camera's viewport. And now let's begin sculpting. So we got our terrain, and now you'll notice we have a few options. We have the raise and lower thing, and basically what this does is it just builds hills for you. Now there is a problem with this, and that is that Unity's directional light is kind of annoying, because when you're doing stuff like this, I find it very difficult to work with this. Because you can't see exactly where you're going, and you've always got to move, and then you can barely see there. This directional light is just not good in general in this case. So we can actually turn down the intensity slightly, and you'll see that now we can kind of see it. But the problem is we still got this ambient light, so I'm going to go to Window, Lighting, and you'll get this. We're going to turn off ambient intensity because we don't want that. And we also want this to be a color, not a gradient. Reflection, we don't want it to reflect the skybox. So we're just going to leave it like that. And now I'm going to close this. All I've basically done here is set this to where shadows are a bit easier to see. It's quite easy to work now because we've got this. And so now we can begin sculpting. I'm going to hit Command C. Whoops. I'm going to create a new terrain. Actually, no, I can go on this terrain. Pretty sure I can hit Settings, Reset. Nope. Alright, I'm going to delete this terrain. And I'm going to add a new one. Alright, so now we've got this. Let's build a basic terrain. So, first of all, whenever you're making terrains, you want to have a border. So we're just going to use this raise and lower tool to quickly create a border around it so that the player can't leave. Just do a border real quick. Every time you do something like this, it's always nice to take a stop your movement so that you can easily go back and undo that, because you can see right there that if I undo it, it just undoes everything. Just build that hill right there. Now this is nice. We can get some pretty good effects, and then you'll see we're going to do something like that. And then just for fun, we are going to put a small hill in the middle. Now I'm actually going to turn down the opacity because that is essentially your strength. I remember we talked about it last time, and I'm going to turn it down a Whoops, my computer right there. I'm going to turn it down to about 10. Because we want a very small hill. There we go. So now we got a hill. This is actually a pretty good map, or like PvP almost. But now you'll see that we've just used one brush. We can actually use a few brushes to get effects that we want. For example, if we want to go ahead and make a really easy, like, I don't know. You can make some pretty cool things with that, and we'll add a few of these just to spice it up and put one at each corner. Just to spice it up. We have detail brushes, which are pretty cool. You can do like dots and stuff in the ground. It's pretty cool for making like rough edges. Alright, and you'll just see we've got a load of these. But now, basically, it says right here, hold shift to lower, and then that's just if you want to put an indentation in something. And now my computer's going to lag, but you can see that you can actually put indentions in things. For example, we're going to put an indentation. And I'm actually going to turn on the brush opacity for this to about 50, just because that's too deep of an incision, I guess you could call it. We'll shift, click, shift, click, shift, click, shift, click. Alrighty. So now that we got this, we are going to go ahead and go to the next tool, which is paint height. So this basically allows us to make mountains. So that's why you have these brushes right here, is to make mountains and stuff like that. We're not going to be dealing with this because we don't want to make a mountain in this case, but you can see that you can make a cool like cylinder shape. And then we have smooth height, which basically just allows you to smooth off the height. So if you have like a really bumpy area, you can smooth it off really easily. Now I don't use this tool that much, but you can use it. Now we have paint, and we're going to skip this because we're going to come back to that in a minute. Then we have place trees. Now this is where if you have a tree or anything like that, then that's what you do, but we don't have a tree right now, so we are going to leave it alone. We have paint details, which allows you to paint essentially like really simple details. I don't play around with it. You can also do this, the way this works is this basically puts an object, so you could add a grass texture or a mesh or whatever, and it actually works pretty well. And then you have your settings and all these settings. Wow, that's a lot of settings. So we are not going to play around with those because that's a lot of settings. All right, so now let's go back to this paint. We want to, because the last time I remember, terrains aren't that brown. So we are going to go ahead and add a texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit texture, add texture. And now you'll see we have this option right here. So I'm going to pause the video real quick because I forgot to get to textures. So I'll be right back. Okay, so basically what I've done here is, this is how I found my textures, and I said I was going to cut this part out, but I figured I might as well show you guys how I found these. All I did was I just googled grass texture seamless HD, and that gets you pretty much what you need, because you don't need to do anything like that. This is great for small stuff. If you're going to go into selling your game, I would make sure to check with the texture maker. So what I like to do is I like to make a list of what textures I use and then links to where I found them so that I can always go back, and if I'm going to make the game publish, then I can give credit to them, and I can also see if I have permission to use that. Alright, so I found a grass texture and I found a cool dirt texture. So I'm just going to save both of these images to my downloads real quick. Alright, and now we are going to paint. So the first one, we're just going to go back to this add terrain menu. We're going to go to the albedo smoothness, and first of all you won't see it, and that's because we haven't imported it yet. So I'm going to go to my downloads, I'm going to drag it in. And then that fails, so I'm just going to go to import, new asset, downloads. And you can't import two things at once, sadly, unless you put it in a folder. Now we're just going to import the second one. Alright, nope, the wrong one. That was for my thumbnail. Well, alright, so now we're going to make our grass texture, our dirt texture first, because we want the dirt to be first. So I'm going to drag this into the albedo RGB and smoothness alpha. And we're just going to leave that at 0 and with the size of 15. And now you'll see that this happens. So if I zoom in, you will see, look how tiled it is. That is so highly tiled. We want that to be a tad bit bigger. So we are going to go to our terrain. We're going to edit this texture. And we are going to make the size smaller. It may seem counterintuitive, but surprisingly, it actually, whoops, my bad, 20. It needs to be bigger, that's right. Whoopsies. I usually set it to around 30 or 20. 20 works pretty good. And then you also have to do it on the Y so that it stays squarish. Alright, so now we've got that. We're going to do the exact same thing with the next one. Now notice that with this one, it doesn't automatically add it, and that's because we can actually paint these textures on now. So I'm going to show you guys pretty much how to make a basic path. So I'm going to scale this down like this. I'm going to select this green texture, and I'm going to make a path, and that's way too wide. And I'm going to actually paint that entire hill green, but for right now, do this, and then have a road coming off like that, go to there, coming off like that. This is one of the things you really just have to play around with, just for funs. And then I'm just going to paint in the rest of this hill. Such fun. Alright, that was extremely inaccurate, but it works. So now you'll see we got this, and then you can also go ahead and do like, if you had an ice texture, you could do it across the top of the mountains just to make it look cooler. But that was pretty good. And so basically we've made a terrain that we can use in our game, and it works actually really seamlessly. I've played around with it and it works really well. I don't have the character thing, so I'm not going to do that. So yeah, that's basically making terrains in Unity. That's basically all you need to know. The pro of painting on this, and rather than using Photoshop, is you can actually edit it in real time, which is really nice. And then also another pro is that it's all real time and it's all sculpting, but the con is that it takes a long time, whereas in Blender you can do it just procedurally. So if you want to figure out how I made a really cool procedural terrain, there will be a link in the description to watch that video. Go check it out, it's a cool video. Yeah, pretty much that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.